Hey Coconuts, it's your girl Princess Cat, and today we're going to be discussing Defense 101. And before we kick it off, I want to apologize because I have what appears to be a permanent sinus infection and a mouth breathing, and so this is my life now. This is just my life. So this is how I sound from now on. So, moving into Defense 101, now that we've gotten that out of the way. They're like my Attack 101 video. I'm going to be assuming that you have kind of gotten your research where you want it to be, and you have got your troop count kind of where you want it to be, and your gear, and you just want to know where you need to tighten and what you need to work on further, or if there's anything that you've missed in particular. So with your research, it all kind of depends on whether you are just building on your empire or whether you're trapping. Trapping at Iron Throne is making your empire look as small and as unassuming as possible so that it entices people to want to attack you. Meanwhile, you're able to pack a good enough punch to where you're going to kill off the majority, if not all, of their march, and they're going to kill off very little troops of yours, and you're going to make out on points. Regardless of whether you're trapping or whether you are just building the research of your empire, making yourself stronger, everybody pretty much agrees that the three most important trees are going to be your troop training tree, your hero tree, and your battle tree. There's important researches in almost every tree that you can find. However, those are the three that you really want to flesh out and focus on. Moving on to gear. Gear is super important in this game because you could have all the research you want and have as many troops as you have, and if you are caught naked with nothing on your guard captain or no guard captain and no deputies, you are more than likely going to get obliterated. It will be done, son. So you want to make sure that you have good gear and that you're constantly working on it and trying to perfect it and build it up better, especially through events like Blood Moon, where you're going to get double the gear chests for hitting monsters and things like that. Now, if you are free to play or you're working on the grind, or budget-minded player, Guardian gear still has a lot of potential for you. If we come into the Codex and we take a look at what a plus 20 Guardian set's going to give you, especially if you are taking solo attacks, this is going to give you a 300% troop HP bonus. That's pretty significant, as well as other debuffs that it gives towards your enemy attack. However, it's not as mighty as the Majestic set is. Especially if you're taking rallies, this Majestic set is going to give you an additional 900% debuff to rally troop attack. And I feel like another buff that's often overlooked in this is the enemy tier 6 Preemptive Strike debuff. It gives you 5% at 19 and another 5% at 17, so that's a total of 10%. Which takes off a huge chunk of your enemy's attack. I myself, I've just gotten a second plus 20 Majestic set, working on a third. It has significantly helped with my defending. And even using them in things like defending sanctuaries and ADMs and it's been super helpful. I definitely recommend working towards a solid Majestic set or two. Or 3 in my case. And then you get a lot of people that are also swapping between their Guardian and Majestic over to their troop type level 40 sets. So their Slaughters or their Outcry sets. That works out really well, and it really helps keep your attacker on their toes because they don't really know what's being sent. Or what they're sending at, I should say. You especially want to make sure that you keep your Scout Blocker on, and that you can find in your battle buff. It costs 3,000 gold, 3k gold to get a 7-day Scout Blocker. Or you can get a 24-hour Scout Blocker in various chests and in your Alliance shop. Continually working up on your gear. Again, super important. Aside from that, we're going to talk about our troop count. Now, we're not going to get into troop composition, the types of troop, and the way that you can alter your tiers, because that's a very convoluted discussion. That's a video all on its own. But we are going to talk about your troop count. Now, how many troops you have in your empire, it all depends on what type of hits you're taking, how strong of an empire you are, if you're in a new kingdom versus an old kingdom, which, may not be so relevant now after the mass transfer event. But regardless, if you are taking hits and you are finding that your attacker is able to break through your bottom tier and go into the next tier, that means a couple different things. One, it means you don't have enough troops in the bottom tier to take the attacks that you're taking. So you either have to look for smaller attacks, or you have to increase the amount of troops you have in your bottom tier so that they can have more HP to soak up more of the attack. Because regardless of how much attack debuff or HP debuff your attacker has, they can't debuff your HP, your actual HP per troop, other than the Dark Aura, which will take off, I think, like 87 of your troop HP. So other than that, they can't debuff your HP, at least not a huge significant amount. So even if you're going up against the best attackers with the most HP debuffs, having a more solid troops can get around that. So you want to increase the amount, basically. It's a long-winded way of just saying increase your troop count, your bottom tier. Also, if they're reaching the next tier, it's also because you're not killing off their march in the Preemptive Strike. So that means you need to increase the amount of your attack troops, which are your T6 and or your T7, depending on your troop composition, so that you can better kill off their march so that they have no troops to kill off any other troops of yours. Super important there. People ask me, what troop do I want to have as a bottom tier then? Well, there's multiple answers for that. Obviously, it goes without saying that the higher troop that you have, the higher defense and the higher HP value that those troops are going to have. It's very true. T4 is going to have significantly higher HP. We're looking here, 480 plus the 125 for a T4 troop versus, I think, 290 plus 75 for a T2 troop. So those are going to be stronger troops. However, they're going to cost you a ton of points. You're going to give away so many points when you're unshielded in things like Blood Moon and True World and Invasion. So I typically recommend having Tier 1 or Tier 2 troops. Not only for the point value reason, but also they're insanely cheap to train. They're very cheap to heal, comparatively so when you compare to T3, T4, etc. And most importantly, you're not going to be giving away points. Yes, your level 40 gears are going to have stronger attacks towards T1 and T2s, but that's overcome by just simply having more troops built. So I definitely recommend having those. A lot of people ask, what is the difference between defense and HP, and which should I focus on? And that really depends on the amount of troops that you have and the tier of troops that you have as well for your bottom shield. So your defensive pool and your HP pool are both configured exactly the same way. You're going to take that defense number, which in this case it's 2. You're going to multiply it by the amount of troops in that tier. So let's say I have 100 million T2 troops. So 2 becomes 200 million. And then that is multiplied against my defense percent, which is the percent that I get for various buildings and runes and lord skills and enhancements and gear and all that jazz. Anything that gives a defense percent is all added together and multiplied now against that number, that 200 million. That gives me my final defensive pool number. HP value is the same, so it's going to be 290 plus 75, which is 365 multiplied against that 100 million troops. And then that number is multiplied against my HP percent value. And that gives me my HP pool for that tier of troops. When you're being attacked, your defense is going to take a chunk of the attack off. So it has to go through defense first, and then it gets to your HP. And at that point, that's when your troops are now going to the hospital or getting killed, is when the attacker gets into your HP pool. So, theoretically, if an attacker cannot get through your HP pool, none of your troops will die, and you will cap their hero. That is extremely difficult to do on a low-tiered troop and without having a huge amount of them. Because there are still a lot of defensive debuffs, and that number, that defense number, is tiny compared to your HP number. So if you have a load of troops, and I'm talking, especially if we're like talking T1 and T2s, like we're talking about billions of troops, or we're talking a lot, several 100 million, if not more, of your higher tiered troops, that defensive buff isn't going to be super effective for you compared to your HP buff, in my opinion. However, if you can find a way to get that defensive number up there, especially the base number, and then have a significant amount of defensive percent, that could be game-changing for you. I think in more cases than not, concentrating on the HP value and HP percent is going to be more helpful. Because for most people, they don't have a chance to stop their attacker with their defensive pool. But that's just my opinion. Once you have your gear kind of getting sorted and your research is being sorted and your troop composition is going well, then you just really want to make sure that you're maxing out all chances that you have for buffs and bonuses. One way to do that is through building enhancements. There are certain buildings you want to concentrate on. One is going to be on whatever troop composition that you have in your empire. So since I'm infantry, I'd come into training grounds, upgrade, enhance, and I would want to enhance this as high as possible. Then over to prison would be the same, because that's going to give you troop attack and troop defense. And then also on your troop defense, which also helps with your enemy leverage debuffs. So since I am infantry, I want to get an archer leverage debuff. I would get that through the wall. That gives me enemy archer leverage attack debuff. And then if I have any archers, it would give me archer defense. Your warehouse is going to be where you're going to get your calves. And your command center is going to be where you're going to get your infantry. Other areas you could focus on are your outer castle buildings. That's going to be things like your silver mines, your hospitals, and your barracks. You can have up to 10 of each of these buildings. They are stackable, so you do get buffs and boosts for every building that you can build, as long as it's of appropriate level. Now, if you come into details more, the writing, the way that these boosts kind of work is a little misleading. You do get 2% defense for all buildings once they're at level 29. So as long as you have level 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, you're going to get a 2% defense buff. 30 through 34 will give you a 5% buff. So not 5% for level 30, 5% for 31, 5% for 32. You get 5% buff for having buildings 30 through 34. 35 through 37 give you 8%, 38 and 39 give 9%, and 40 gives you 10. Another way would be going through your obelisk. which is going to cost you more gold, but it's going to be less resources than it would, say, through your outer buildings. I try to do about 15 levels a day, because that's only cost me, well, I already have done some today, but I think it's about 100,000 gold for 15 levels. And the amount of resources just depends on what levels you're doing. But if you go into details more and set bonuses, you're going to see what set bonuses you can get. For example, you can get Blessing of HP, which is excellent for defense, for having Obelisk of Creation and Gold at level 100 or higher. And then you get an addition to that buff every 100 levels. Golden Fire also give you a troop attack bonus, so that's another great one to strive for once you have your HP up. Other than that, guys, it's more of just, making sure you're in the correct Lord skills, coming in here and checking out, making sure that you're, getting all your temporary buffs all locked and loaded before you drop that shield and start looking like a tasty snack for someone to hit. I took a pretty good hit the other day from Sai, and they were awesome, and they rallied me, and had some really good numbers in there, and did breach my T2 and into some of my T4, so that gave me a good lesson of needing to increase, or not necessarily a lesson, but it let me know that I needed to increase my T2s, especially if I want to be taking big rallies. So everybody has a way to learn and improve on what they're doing and making things better. And especially when you have some formidable attackers, it just makes you a better empire. So, where do we go from here, Coconuts? What do you want me to go into specifically? Feel free to leave me a comment in the box. Like and subscribe. And as always, you can check out our website at www.ironthroneelite.com. Until next time.